Hi students, and welcome to today's mini lecture on persuasive speech. If you hear my dogs barking or if you hear other people talking at the background, please excuse me. It's rather hard to actually record from home, so I'm hoping that the noise that you will hear is as minimized as possible. Okay, let's start with the first one. So what is the goal of persuasive speech? We start by actually defining what persuasion is. And so here you can see that persuasion is the process of creating, reinforcing, or changing people's beliefs or actions. And there are three goals of persuasion. And I want you to remember this because it is something that I'm going to ask for your quiz as well as for your final exam. So the first one is to strengthen commitment. So you have audience who already kind of be on the same page as you are and you want to strengthen their commitment. That's going to be one of the goal of persuasive speech. And then the next one is to weaken commitment. This is something for people who actually disagree with you on a certain issue and you would like to weaken their commitment on that issue so that they kind of start leaning in towards where your position is. And then the third one is to promote action. So these three goals are something that you need to think about as you're thinking about your persuasive speech. So how to achieve your goals? The first one that you need to do is to perform audience analysis. And I think by this time you're already so familiar with this because understanding who your audience is and understanding their belief system, their interests will help you think about the kind of topic that is going to be suitable for this persuasive speech. So you see that in persuasive speech especially, I want you to think hard about your audience interests and your own interests and how you can meet and make sure that you're able to convince your audience to act on something or to rethink their position or something or to strengthen their commitment on certain issue. And then it's also important for you to demonstrate how the changes you propose will benefit the audience. If you don't think about the audience and their needs, they're not going to be convinced by you. So it's so important that in our session where we're going to basically brainstorm ideas for persuasive speech, that you get to talk to one another, you get to discuss your topic with your audience so that you know exactly how you can demonstrate the changes that you propose to benefit them basically. And then the next one is establishing your credibility. I think in every speech that we have done so far, we have basically done this. It's very important for you to convince your audience that you know what you're talking about and that they should trust you in delivering this speech and this particular topic. And then also, I want you to set modest goals. And the reason why setting modest goal is important for your persuasive speech is because if your audience position is directly opposite of your own position, it's going to be harder for you to convince them. So when you're trying to make changes, make sure that you're asking them to do small changes and not to do a big change that's going to significantly impact their life. Yeah. So setting modest goal is definitely important. And then expect to be more successful when the audience position differs only slightly from your positions. And this is related to what I have explained previously. The fact that if somebody is in total opposite of your perception of an issue or your view of an issue, it's going to be hard for you to actually convince them to agree with what you think. So try to find ways for you to be able to convince them and be able to make sure that you are really not that different from them. And so you will be able to achieve your goal easier than if you have to jump through so many hoops. Now, the three things that I'm pretty sure you're familiar with and that is very much closely related to persuasive speech is this idea of ethos, pathos, and logos. So persuasive speeches use arguments as a framework for making an appeal. An argument is a stated position with support for or against an idea or an issue. And I want you to understand the definition of an argument here, because as always, I'm always giving you hints and tips on what kind of questions I'm going to ask for the quiz as well as for the final exam. And the definition of an argument is something that I tend to ask in my quiz and exam. And then appealing to reason and logic, or to what Aristotle termed logos, is important in gaining agreement for your argument. However, to truly persuade listeners to care about your position, you must also appeal to their emotions, or what Aristotle termed as pathos. So audience want more than logical and emotional appeals from a speaker. They want what's relevant to them from someone who cares. So in other words, when you choose a topic, you need to make sure that you care about the topic that you choose, that it somehow affect you in real life, and that it will affect your audience in their real life as well. So by showing that you care about the topic that you're talking about, audience are more likely to believe in you and to want to be persuaded by you. So Aristotle termed this effect of the speaker on the audience ethos, or moral character. So modern day scholars call it speaker credibility. Yeah. So ethos is also called moral character, but the modern day scholars call it speaker credibility. Now let's talk about understanding credibility. Aristotle urged the public speakers to exhibit goodwill towards their audiences by wanting what is best for their listeners rather than what would benefit themselves. This is a very important key concept in persuasive speech. We talk about how it is very important for you to care about the topic that you're discussing. But also, you need to show goodwill to your audience, saying that caring about this topic is not only going to benefit yourself, but it's also going to benefit the audience. For instance, caring about the environmental issue is not only going to benefit yourself, but also going to benefit your audience and the future generation. Or caring about, what else? What are the other issues? Caring about immigration issues, for instance, is not going to be beneficial for you who may be personally affected by that, but also is going to affect the whole society in general. And you need to be able to show that you're not thinking of yourself, that you're also thinking about the audience benefit. Now, speakers who demonstrate goodwill usually do the following. They understand the listener's needs and feelings. They empathize with their audience's views, and they respond quickly to others' communication. These are all important aspects that I really do want you to showcase in your persuasive speech, to show that you understand your listeners' needs and feelings, to show that you empathize with their view, and you quickly, basically, you're very responsive towards their maybe their needs, or you basically try to think about how you can approach this matter the best and respond to whatever it is that they're concerned about. Yeah, so this is about goodwill as well. Now, the next one is how to build credibility. You do this by sharing your qualifications to speak on the topic. So for instance, if you are going to talk about environmental issue and you have been volunteering at this nonprofit that specifically work with solar panels or something like that. So you share your qualification to speak on the topic. And then you present strong evidence from reputable sources. This is where, when we talk about the importance of research and how that I want you to always include academic resources or academic research, this is where you shine, because you want to make sure that you present evidence that was well researched by reputable sources. And by reputable sources, I'm talking about scholars, I'm talking about universities, I'm talking about experts in their field. Yeah. And then you're going to highlight common ground with the audience. You want to choose your words carefully. You want to show respect for conflicting opinions. So if, for instance, you know that some of your audience member disagree with where you stand, then you want to show that you respect their opinion on that issue. And then you want to practice your speech until your delivery is fluent, because this is something that we talk in class as well, how important it is to make sure that our delivery is fluent, because we want to make sure that audience know we really have good understanding of the topic that we're talking about. And so we're not just pulling data out of thin air, but we have done a lot of research, we have read, we have practiced, and so we will look credible when we're able to deliver our speech fluently. And then the next one is talking about the logos, or the evidence and reasoning. So when you present trustworthy facts to back your claims and show how those facts led you to your claims, you use logos effectively. So how to use evidence? First, you have to identify your sources and their qualifications. I talk about, for instance, if I want to make an argument about how sugar is good for your health, and I am going to use this evidence, I would say the evidence was done by CU Boulder University, but the sponsor for the research that's done by CU Boulder is actually Krispy Kreme or Dunkin' Donuts. Then you wouldn't want to do that, because you know that the evidence is tempered by the sponsorship that was given to that research. And so you want to make sure that the research that was done is unbiased, and that is objective, and that actually is going to support your topic that you're presenting. And then the next one that I want you to do is to make sure that you give listeners new evidence. This is something that is very similar to informative speech, in a way that informative speech always wants you to present something new, so that students, or in this case, so that your audience are going to be interested in the topic that you're presenting. And this is the same for your persuasive speech as well. You don't want to present evidence that are pretty stale, that, for instance, everybody already knows about that. So you want to present evidence that is exciting, that is new, that's going to help make your audience want to listen to you and say, oh, I did not know about that before. Yeah. And then you want to make sure that you provide precise evidence. Precise as in it will directly impact the argument that you're making. Yeah. So you don't want to talk about other evidence that have no direct link to the argument that you're making. And then the next part is constructing sound arguments. So arguments are comprised of three elements: the claim, the evidence, and the warrant. And I'm going to actually go deeper into this, mini lecture on the claim, evidence, and warrant right after this. I'm going to break it down to two parts of mini lectures on persuasive speech, so that you're not going to get bored listening to me talking for half an hour. So I'm going to break it here, and then I'm going to continue talking about constructing sound arguments.